It is a special year for the city of Tuscaloosa. If you don't already know this, Tuscaloosa is celebrating its bicentennial, and we have a very special guest with us today who's been a part of the city's past, certainly the present, and of course will be a part of the future. Longtime city leader Harrison the Mailman Taylor. So glad you could sit down with us today.
Thank you for having me here, and it's looking forward to coming and talking about the bicentennial celebration.
This is big, and you are an integral part of this big moment for the city that you've called home for all these years.
I mean, it's amazing. You know, my hometown, I'm so proud of my hometown and where we come from as a city, and as people who was able to make a difference in Tuscaloosa. You know, and this celebration, this bicentennial celebration, is bringing this whole community together. You know, and the committee is awesome. I work with a lot of committees and a lot of different people, but this committee, I tell you, you know, used to throw out some things that need to be done, and you know, most people just sit around and say, "Who's gonna do it?" Or they grab it, and run with it. You know, I really enjoy it. You know, but every aspect they made it possible and affordable, even for me. I was able to go and pay for it free. Most of the activity was free, and I'm an old mailman, so I said, whatever your zip code was, you could be a part of this celebration. It wasn't their celebration or going to be them. It was our celebration of this city.
Of our entire community.
We got a great city.
We do, and so you go way back because this is right here where you got your beginnings.
Yes.
Talk to me about those early years. What your early years were like here in Tuscaloosa.
Well, you know, I loved my city before my city loved me. You know, and we went through some tough times. I grew up in a segregated Tuscaloosa where there was no blacks in the banks, no blacks in City Hall, in the courthouse working, I'm saying. No clerks. Crest Diamond, 5 and Dime store in Woodworth. I was a part of Bloody Tuesday, where we had one of the, in my opinion, I sit at the feet of a king, Martin Luther King, when he spoke, when they did the installation for T.Y. Rogers. Reverend T.Y. Rogers, in my opinion, may have been one of the greatest leaders ever come through Tuscaloosa. And I marched with him in the demonstration in Bloody Tuesday, and I served with the finest mayor in the South. And when I say South, I mean south of the Canadian border, Walt Maddox. And those things made a difference in our life. You know, Donna Washington is from Tuscaloosa, a native, grew up, and she had a song was called "What a Difference a Day Makes." And on those different a day makes, I just want to throw out a few of them. When George Wallace stood in the schoolhouse doors at the University of Alabama the next day, what a difference a day makes. Things change.
Right.
At Bloody Tuesday, when we was trying to fight for our rights, voting rights, and the public accommodations, we was beat down, tear gas in the church, and the next day, following Reverend T.Y. Rogers, we had a mass meeting that Monday night, and he was saying, rights are out there. It's a better life. You should want that life. You know, let's go get that life. It's time for us to go and get that life. And we was fired up, man. I don't care. That Monday night, when he was preaching, and that Tuesday morning, Bloody Tuesday, they could have had alligators out there. We was ready to go. And we was beat down and pushed back in the church and tear gas and fire hoses. But what a difference a day makes, things change.
You mentioned T.Y. Rogers, and there's a letter right here. And this is regarding T.Y. Rogers, but this was actually written by Martin Luther King Jr. It's incredible, and you have this.
Yeah, it's awesome. You know, he was recommending Reverend Rogers to First African Baptist Church, and I received that from one of the deacons, from my aunt, Ruth Bolden. She was a big member of that church, and she was in the civil rights movement along with Reverend Linton. They were some of the older heads around here today still living, but she's not living anymore. But
And you were young when you were a part of all this. You're a teenager, maybe 16, 17 at this point. So you're not a bona fide adult yet, and you're already being involved in part of the process to make change.
You know, the movement then, like most movements, it was a young people movement. Stillman College and Druid High School students from some of the other surrounding areas. But the adults, you know, some of them was calling it mess, you know, getting in that mess and things, and T.Y.'s upsetting the city. But T.Y. Rogers, the T.Y., you know, was standing for Tuscaloosa Yo-Yo. we thought that for Tuscaloosa Yo-Yo going to make a difference, and he did, you know. And it was not just a black movement. We had a lot of whites that helped out, you know. Off the top of my head, I think Alberta Murphy and someone else, I can't think of the name right now, but it'll come to me. But whites kind of gave money to get us out of jail and paid for our hospital bills. So it was a thing. But just think about, a lot of people think the civil rights movement was for blacks. But think how many white women helped out. Before then, there wasn't no whites or women in politics. One was no judges. One too many principals or superintendents. But the civil rights movement changed all of that for us as we moved along. But it was because of decent, fair-minded whites and blacks wanted to make a difference in Tuscaloosa. And our thing was so much different was no one's died in the movement. And it didn't keep fighting like in a lot of cities. Like the city up north, you know, they fought every day about everything. But Tuscaloosa was different. Once we had sit-ins at Crest and Woodworth, and they just shut the thing down. And about 6 weeks later, after the public accommodation bill thing law passed, President Lyndon Johnson signed the bill, we opened back up and was all over with. We just didn't keep fighting like a lot of cities. And it made a difference. You know, I was thinking, I was sitting in church and they were talking about David, the shepherd boy. He was a shepherd boy and out in the woods, tending to sheep, mosquitoes biting him and laying out there in the woods. A couple of seasons later, he was in the King Palace. Here I am in the Bloody Tuesday in Tuscaloosa, trying to make a difference, fighting for our rights. A couple of seasons later, president of the city council.
And speaking,
what a city.
That's right. And
what a city.
Speaking of city council, I want to talk, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the efforts that you really pushed for to bring more diversity to the city leadership. Stay with us, back in a moment. We're here today with Harrison the Mailman Taylor, and we were speaking earlier about diversity and why that's so important, the push for change in the city. And I know you as a city leader, longtime city council member, 24 years, I believe, on the council, 20 of those years as council president. One of the things that you did was take a look at the department heads and ask the question, why the lack of diversity?
You know, when I first went to City Hall, you know, they had 2 retirement systems. And I couldn't believe it. 1993, 2 retirement systems, one for blacks, one for whites. The blacks were making like $250 or $300, and the whites were making $1,500 to $1,600. And I said, man, we're going to change this. And so I had a big meeting down at the T-Dot Auditorium, and boy, they jumped on me. The blacks employees jumped all over me, called me names, and said I was selling them out, and I was Uncle Tom, and I couldn't figure out why. So I went home, and I was sitting there just trying to figure it out. My wife, and the phone rang, and this lady called me a black SOB and said, "You're taking money out of our check." And I said, "Wow, that's what it is." So I told my wife, I said, "I'm through. I don't care if they don't get $1." She said, "No, you got to do what's right." I said, "You weren't at that meeting. They told me up. I'm through. I'm not gonna bring anything up." But she stayed with me and stayed on it, and we was able to get the retirement system changed. And because nobody brought it up before. And the next thing was the Civil Service Board. Was the most important, most powerful board in this city. They did the hiring, the firing, suspension, promotion, and everything, all the power. But it was always 3 white men. And I studied this thing. Later on my route, a senior assistant on my route told me, "Mailman, you're up there. You got to know what you're talking about. You got to study the issues." Old lady told me that.
Right.
And it hit me. I went to different people, tried to get them, and they said, no, that can't be right. And I'm saying, man, so I studied. I said, this thing was created in 1947. Never had a black, had one white lady to serve 2 years of somebody else's term. Right. Never had a white lady again. All the leaders was on the civil service was north of the river. So I went to 5 different governors. And you know, and people said, well, you're a Democrat. Yeah, I'm a pure Democrat, but Republicans helped me. Governor Riley was the one I sat down and talked to. Some Republicans brought him to the table in Tuscaloosa for me, and we sat down and talked. He said, well, if you're telling me facts, I'll make a difference. I'll change it. Because they was appointing the members of the Civil Service Board for the city back then. And I said, thank you. I got a call, and so the governor said he's not going to do it. I said, what? I said, he's going to be this bull jive like everybody else. I mean, all the other governors, Sigelman, Folsom, Fob James, all of them. And so I sit there and I just said, man, I sit on my couch, and I'm not a holy roller person, but I do believe in the Lord. You know, I know prayer answers. So I sit there and say, Lord, I don't know what to do. I've been everywhere and talked to everybody, so I don't know what to do. And the next day, I was at Home Depot, my phone rang from the governor's office. Secretary said, I don't know who you talked to, but you got your man. Willie Fort of the Housing Authority, the first black who be appointed on the Civil Service Board. And, you know, we went through City Hall, and
I think there was, at the time that you brought up the issue, in 2016, I believe, there was 15 department heads, and out of those, only 1 African American and only 1 female.
That's right.
If I remember correctly.
Yep. And we was working with the mayor and our city council. I went to them, each one of them one-on-one. I talked with the mayor, and they all agreed it's time for a change, and let's do it. We want women's and minorities, blacks and women's, and we're going to open it up. If you I don't come out no unqualified. See, I don't want to be on a plane, flying a plane. I don't care how black he is until he's a plumber. You know, I want the man who's qualified to be up there flying. So we agreed, if you're qualified, you would do it. And the mayor walked, man, that was open-minded, and he did a great job. But, you know, we talked to him, and the council worked with us, and we made a difference. You know, we had a city clerk, Tracy Kroon, police chief, and when they talked about naming the police chief, I ran that night. I couldn't sleep that night. I couldn't believe it. The next morning, I ran to the door and looked out, see the sun coming up, but it still come on up. And I said, oh, we all right.
That would be Chief Steve Anderson, who served a long time for the city.
And, you know, think about it, Lynn. Nobody said anything. They accepted and went on. Our city. We got a lovely, great city. I'm so proud of my city, where we come from.
Right.
I mean, you know, where I'm coming from, a little boy from West Tuscaloosa, and from Druid High School, where the school was segregated. Tuscaloosa High School was over here, and then Druid High School, but we had good, strong teachers. I remember we used to pass books down from Tuscaloosa High School. They had wrote all kind of things in, all kind of names they called us, and half the pages was tore out. And I told my mother one night, I said, I didn't want to do my homework anyway, so I told her, I said, look at this old book, all ragged and messed up. And she said this to me. She said, old book or new book, what difference does it make if you don't open either? Get in there and get your lesson out of that old book. Work with and use what you got. And I never forgot that.
Wow. And you certainly were able to make an impact on the city. And those things that you were able to accomplish have really rippled to where we are at present day, and must have made you feel really good to know that you improved that city leadership just by speaking up.
You know, and that was part of it, but we had good support from all over the city.
Right.
You know, I used to work, coming up, my first job at 16 years old, I worked for one of the wealthiest men in this city. I used to chauffeur for him on the weekend. And I learned a lot about, you know, white privilege and a name. My mother always told me, everybody won't have a lot of money, but you can build on a good name and good reputation. And I took that, and that worked for me. She always told us, you know, son, I used to hear this all my life, Lynn. Take the Lord with you. He take the place you never dreamed of. Never, I mean, heard all my life, never paid much attention. Washington, D.C. Here's a little guy from West Tuscaloosa sitting up there with Richard Shelby and the mayor and the city attorney, talking with him. And I looked over, and here come Ted Kennedy out of the door, Joe Biden come out, and I looked up at the sky and said, Mom, you sure right. Take him with you, take your place you never dreamed of. Met and talked with five, not just met and shook a governor's hand, sit down and talk with 5 different governors.
Wow.
So being a mailman has helped me, and being city councilman has made a difference. On this bicentennial committee, oh man, we go into meetings and things and meet people. Everybody seems like they're on board in Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa is an amazing city. I mean, I love my hometown. You know, the different groups that's coming forth to help out, you know. We having, you know, different companies and higher education partners, corporations, individuals. Everybody want to help out on make our celebration, our birthday celebration, what it is.
And we're going to talk more about that celebration when we come back. Stay with us. We're very privileged and honored to sit down today with Harrison, the mailman, Taylor, and it's been a pleasure talking with you. And I know that you are really looking forward to the bicentennial celebrations in general, but also congratulations, you're one of the grand marshals of this year's Christmas parade. That's got to be pretty fun, right?
That is awesome, thank you. You know, and along with Ms. Catherine Reynolds and Tim Parker, you know, we were co-chairmen of bicentennial, and it's just an honor, but you know, it's always good to be the first 200-year celebration. And I'm just wondering how would it be 50 years from now, or 100 years from now, how it's going to be then. But we got doing a capsule on the 13th, you know, that's the big day, that's our birthday.
Right.
And Tuscaloosa will be 200 years old on December 13th, and we have a lot of activities. So look at the news, and this station, let me just stop and thank this station for all it's doing for the bicentennial. I'm so sorry I forgot. You all have done a great, masterful job. Our TV station, our newspaper has been outstanding.
Oh,
we couldn't ask for anything better. We couldn't pay for the things you all are doing for us.
And of course, speaking of the Christmas parade, we're going to be broadcasting all that live on television. So I'll be waving at you.
Oh, no,
you'll be in the parade, but we'll be covering the parade. So we're all in this together, you know, and we're proud to be a part of this community.
Yeah, I mean, y'all do a great job, and we just looking forward to the big parade and the tree lighting and all, you know. And Paris has been outstanding. They're working with us to make the parade what it is, and we want people to sign up for it and get the floats in there and get the band. You know, it kind of reminded me back when I was coming up, you know, we had the Labor Day parade in Tuscaloosa back then. That was the biggest thing. And now it's the Christmas parade so big.
It's huge. And I know one of your goals was to give people events that don't cost anything, where you can just load up the kids, you know, load up your kids. If you can make it to downtown, you can enjoy it, and it's absolutely free. And I think you should be applauded for that. That's great, because especially at Christmas time, a lot of folks don't have the extra cash to be spending on activities. So,
well, you know, and that's one of our things we worked on, and I think the mayor worked with us, and our committee, the bicentennial committee, that's what we worked on. We don't care what your zip code might be, or you can have all the money or no money. You know, it's not about the money. Everybody can't have a lot of money, but you can have a good name and good reputation. That's what you can build on.
Well, you certainly have a good reputation. You know, if you look around town, there's the Harrison Taylor Incident Command Center. There's a Harrison Taylor Circle. We can't forget about the most important, the Harrison Taylor Splash Pad.
I see you've been doing your homework.
The Splash Pad is probably the one I'm most impressed with. So when you look around, I know I left a few out because you got your name on just about everything in town. But as somebody who grew up in this town, when you look up and you see your name on those signs, what does that mean to you?
It tells me how fair-minded our city is. And, you know, I think about, like I told you what my mother said, take the Lord with you, take your place you never dreamed of, whoever thought of. And I'm just thankful for the people in my going to school at Druid High School. It made a difference, the teachers and things. You know, I used to go to the back of the class and the teaching, and I had a teacher, Miss Evelyn Mims and Miss Alma White. She's still living today, and I saw her not too long ago. They told me, so don't go to the back of the room anymore. Said, you're not being cool, you're being a fool. Sit up here and get your lesson. And that
you still remember that?
Oh, yeah, that
not
changed me.
Being cool,
that changed
being
me.
a fool.
That changed me. I started, and I started being prepared and wanted to do things. And when I was coming up, it used to be a paper called the Pittsburgh Courier. It was orange outside, and it was a black paper. I had to get it from my grandmother, pick it up from the diamond drug, and take it to her house. And she could read, but she wanted me to read an archive every day. And I used to read about different politicians, you know, stand for something, you know, stand and be strong. And if you stand alone, if you right, you know, you can stand. Stand by yourself, because right will one day gonna stand. And those things, and you know, and my city been good to me, and I can't brag on them enough. I can't brag. I lived in Virginia, Norfolk, and Richmond, Virginia for a while. But Tuscaloosa, I visited California when I was a kid. Every summer, go out to California. I had brothers out there. I've been in the military and served my country. I volunteered for the Civil Rights Army. I was drafted in the United States Army, and served both of them honorably, and glad to serve.
You mentioned reading the newspaper, but in your tenure as a mailman, which was 34 years, you actually would read people their mail, people who weren't able to read along your route. A lot of people may not realize that. You
know, it was a strange thing, you know, when whites couldn't read, they said they can't find their glasses. When blacks couldn't read, they said they haven't took the nerve medicine. And you know then that they couldn't read, you read the mail for them. And I had one gentleman, he come out to the box. I had a certified letter for him. I said, you got to sign for this letter. He put about 4 marks and gave it back to me. I said, man, what is this? He said, I can't read or write. I was in my early 20s, and he was much younger than I was. And I said, wow. He said, would you read my letter for me? It was a letter from Central Fountain. He had been laid off, and he was calling him back to work. He had 5 days to report, otherwise he was going to lose his job. 3 days had already gone. And so I knew then how important it was to read people's mail. And a lot of times, you know, on the route, they'll come out and be standing for you when they get one from their granddaughter. They want you to read it for them, or grandchildren. And you have to stop and take your time and read it for them. And then I knew how important it was to them have a relationship with the people on my route. And it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable to do it. And I took it upon me to do it. I don't care how late I was.
Right.
It was kind of irritating at times. You know, you look up and say, I got to get by. So I hope Miss don't come out today. But she'll come out there with that letter, want you to read it. But I always took the time to read it. And it, you know, and it made a difference all over this city, you know, it was neat.
And as a role model to our young children who will see you as that grand marshal in the parade and all the many things you've done, your name on signs everywhere. If you just had one little piece of advice to give to that next generation, what would you say to them?
Don't ever give up. Study hard, you know, and be prepared, because you never know where life's going to take you. I just believe that, and I believe in, you know, it was a gentleman named Delaware Jackson. And you know, you read about and hear about your slave master with 40 acres and a mule. He was able to get 40 acres, and he owned land on University Boulevard, or where University is now, along that land. He learned from his slave master to first believe in God. He gave Bethel Baptist Church, the church I belong to now, on Castle Hill. He gave them the money and the material to build a church. He gave money and land to build Castle Hill Elementary School for blacks. And he gave, in Northport, he gave money, and where Sprayberry is now, he gave money and land to build that school, because he knew God was first, education, and land. And his motto was, get all the land you can, because the man who built land ain't building no more.
That's right. Very true, right?
He lived 100 years, and 30 of them was in slavery. He come out, his slave master gave him 40 acres and his mule. You know, I've been reading about and hearing about that all my life, but that was a perfect example from Tuscaloosa, Delaware Jackson. And nobody know that much about him. This man should be in the Hall of Fame, but we can't find a picture on him. If anybody got a picture of Delaware Jackson or information, let us know. And I learned about him from my grandmother and my aunt, Ruth Bolden. I guess some people say aunt, some people say aunt, but Ruth Bolden was a school teacher. She stopped teaching school to start the library for blacks, because we couldn't go to the library, Freeman Library, so she started one for blacks. Now we were both in the library.
Well, it has been a pleasure sitting down with you, Harrison, and hearing your stories. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. It was really a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
And thank you for being with us. Have a great evening.